So the thing to remember with multiplication, can you write that you would multiply first? First, you're going to multiply, and then you simplify. That's different from adding and subtracting. So when I say multiply, I'm talking about the number. So that would be these two numbers. You're going to multiply the numbers that's not under the square root. And then you're going to multiply the numbers that are under the square root. So go ahead, take your calculators. If you don't see one, it could be one under the desk or in a desk around you. So you're going to take that 6 times -2. And then you're going to multiply 8 times 3. So 6 times -2 would be -12. And then 8 times 3 is 24. After you multiply, you're going to build a cake. So when you have a number underneath the square root, we have to build a cake to simplify. So let's do that off to the side. Go ahead, divide by 24. Start by dividing it by 2. Keep dividing it by 2, and then when you can't divide it by 2 anymore, then you try 3. Let's take out that ear pod for me. Thank you. Appreciate it. I need both ears. So we got 2 goes into 24 12 times. And then 2 will go into 12 6 times. And then 2 goes into 6 3 times. And then 3 would go into 3 1 time. So the biggest mistake I saw when we did this last week was students got confused on what would come out of the square root and what would stay in. If you have a pair, we can take the pair out. So do you see how we have a pair of 2s right here? That can come out. That's coming out. So we'll have a -12 times 2. And then we'll make our square root. And what's going to stay under the square root are the numbers that did not have a partner. And in that example, that would be this 3 and the 2. That has to stay. Any questions so far? I just want to make sure we're good. Here, let me pull that up a little bit. No, that's kind of low down there. All right, so now we're just going to multiply the numbers that we have on the outside. So let's take out our calculator and take the -12 times 2. That's the number that's on the outside. And then we also multiply the numbers that are under the radical, and that's the number that will stay there. So our final answer would be -24 square root of 6. You might have one of these on your skills check tomorrow, but again, you get to use your notes and your bell work to help you with that. Any questions about our bell work? All right, so now let's go to our notes. I think we're on page 16, 17, something like that. All right, 17. We're on page 17. So yesterday we did questions that had an invisible 2 in the elbow. Today we're moving on to a cube root. So a cube root has an index of 3. That's the number in the elbow. And because the index is 3, we're going to raise both sides to a power of 3. Now, the one thing you'll notice, and I need to make that correction on your homework, is that when it's a cube root, we don't have to do a check. So remember in yesterday's class, we had to check all of our answers. That was because it was a square root. We only have to do checks on square roots, not cube roots. Now, we still want to make sure we isolate the radical. So let's write that. We still have to isolate or get the radical by itself. And then after we do that, we raise it to the power. And in today's example, we're raising it to a power of 3. Isolate means get it by itself. Get by itself. That's what I mean when I say isolate. So there shouldn't be anything on the left side of the equal sign except for that radical. So if we look here, that's the only thing we have over here. So what we're going to do is raise both sides to the power of 3. Now, on the left side, when you do that, it just gets rid of the radical. So now it'll be just 2x plus 1. Now, with your calculator, figure out what 3 to the power of 3 is. That's the same as 3 times 3 times 3. That's what that means. If you take a number and raise it to a power, you're taking it and multiplying it 3 times. So 3 times 3 times 3. So Osiris, what did you get for 3 times 3 times 3? 27. Anybody else get 27? All right, good. So now let's go ahead and finish it. I think this one we're going to get a fraction for. No, we don't. All right, so now we need to do what? What would be my next step to solve for x? Subtract the 1. So let's do that. Take 27 minus 1. Which is 26. And then to get rid of that 2, we divide both sides by 2. So our answer would be x equals 13. And that's it. The main thing to keep in mind is because it's a cube root, we have to raise both sides to a power of 3 instead of squaring both sides. Any questions? All right, let's do a couple more, and then we'll work on some homework questions together. All right, let's look at this next one here. So we have to get this by itself first, which means I have to get rid of this plus 2. I mean that minus 2, sorry. And the opposite of subtracting 2 would be to add 2. So let's do that. Add 2 to both sides. And you get 4. And there's a little 3 here in the elbow. So now we're going to, because that radical is by itself, we're going to raise both sides to the power of 3. So with your calculator, take 4 times 4 times 4. That's 4 to the power of 3. So 4 times 4 times 4. What is 4 times 4 times 4? 64, good. All right, go ahead and finish it from there. Add 1, divide by 5. So we add 1. And we divide by 5. So what is 65 divided by 5?
13.
Anybody else get 13? I don't have my calculator. And that would be our final answer. Any questions so far? So I guess cube roots would be a little easier because we don't have to do a check. All right, let's look at our next question. So in this example, both sides are under a radical. So the first step would be to cube both sides. And when we do that, the only thing that's going to do is get rid of the root on both sides. So we'll have 4x plus 10 equals 2x minus 4. So let's go ahead and subtract. We need to bring all of the x's to the left side. So to do that, because that's positive, we're going to subtract it. So let's subtract 2x. So take 4 minus 2, bring down the 10, and that equals negative 4. So what is 4 minus 2? 2. So we have 2x, and then bring down the plus 10, and that equals negative 4. All right, so now we need to move this number to the right. So this is positive, and the opposite of adding would be to subtract. So let's subtract 10. So use your calculator, take negative 4 minus 10. So that would be a negative 14. Divide both sides by 2. And we get x equals negative 7. Any questions so far about any of these? All right, we'll do one more and then we'll look at our homework together. Let's see which one I want to do. All right, this is a good one. So again, we have to get this by itself first. So we have to get that by itself. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of the minus 13. And what's the opposite of subtracting 13? Adding 13. Good. So let's do that. So go ahead and add 3 plus 13. And 3 plus 13 would be 16. So now we have this 4. And this 4 is being multiplied. And what's the opposite of multiplication? Because we have to get rid of the 4. The opposite of multiplying would be to do what? Divide. So let's divide both sides by 4. Again, we're not touching anything under the square root. Or not square root, cube root. So we have our radical with our little 3 in the elbow, x minus 5. And that equals, take 16 and divide that by 4. Which gives you 4. So now what am I going to do? How do I get rid of the radical? Raise both sides to the power of what? 3. Good. Let's do it. And I think we did this on the last one. So we got 4 times 4 times 4. And what's 4 times 4 times 4? 64. And then we would, we would just add the 5. So our final answer is x equals 64 plus 5. Go ahead, add that in your calculator. And that would be 69. Okay. Let me see. Let me make sure none of these are like really great. All right, so now let's talk about our homework. Can everybody take out your homework real quick because it's due tomorrow? So take out homework 3. There's a couple things I need to cover. If you're absent, this is an absent. All right, so first of all, numbers. So let's all take out our homework real quick. I'll wait for us to get it out.